this team has so many branches to it, so many quote unquote storylines coming into this season. And in the same breath, I don't know anyone that believes that this team is a Super Bowl caliber team. Which I think is crazy because if you look, they have one of the best receiving cores. They have one of the best running back situations. They have one of the better offensive lines. I know that they gave up Jalen Ramsey, but their defense is okay, especially with Nick Chubb. Yet nobody expects this team to make any noise, and that a lot of is and that is usually the case because that's what we've seen. Miami has always been that team where they are great or okay when they're all healthy in the regular season. It's just that when it comes to the playoffs, they're going to crumble. They're not built for the cold. I know it's not like it's not a pun in there. Miami. You see when they went against the Chiefs, it just didn't. I know it was like extreme cold. It was like 20 below, but still. But I want to focus on a couple of aspects. The first aspect I want to focus on is Tyreek Hill. It's difficult when you get spoiled. And what I mean by that is it's difficult when you get spoiled and then you go to a situation that you chose, might I add, but you go to a situation where it doesn't look the same. The same riches, the same spoils, the same success that you're used to isn't happening. Can you imagine going from a team that is a perennial Super Bowl powerhouse that has arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, even in a very short span, that has one of the best coaches of all time, and that will be competing for Super Bowls for years on end? You go from that to a team that really is electric in the regular season, is electric in a dome, is electric when the temperature is above 80 degrees, but isn't the culture isn't there. There's not a championship culture. I understand. Let me also say, with me understanding, that doesn't mean that I agree. I understand the frustration that Tyreek Hill has maybe with himself and the decision that he made. Obviously, you chose money over winning, and there's nothing wrong with that. Football is still a business. But you have to understand, this is the decision that you made. We've talked about this. I'm not going to go in depth, but you went from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Miami Dolphins. So again, I understand the frustration. What I do not understand and what I don't respect, and I think that can be that has been an issue, is how vocal Tyreek Hill has been about his displeasures with the team and their lack of playoff contention. When he goes in the media, it seems like he double dutches whether he's going to request a trade or not. He's coming for, he's making top 5 lists and not including his quarterback. It's just a constant loop of Tyreek Hill saying things, Tyreek Hill actions that are essentially against the team. Again, when you go from being extremely spoiled to now not being spoiled and having to work hard, it's difficult. I'm not saying that Tyreek Hill didn't have to work hard, but there is a huge difference being in a Kansas City Chiefs organization than it is a Dolphins organization. And you've at some point, these players are so close. You're around these players, especially during the season, than well more than you're with your family. And you hear Tyreek or Tua Tagovailoa say it. You hear coaches say it. It's like a lot of the things that Tyreek Hill has done has kind of fractured his relationship with his quarterback, with his coach, with his teammates. And I'm not saying that you can't win with, or you can't win when you don't like somebody. I mean, there's people you work with every day that you probably don't like, but you probably work well together because they're a good worker. Doesn't mean that you like them. But when you constantly take shots, it's like, all right, bro. Like, what? You constantly take shots, and then anytime the time comes where it's like, do you want to be traded? And I was like, nah, I was just in my emotions. Like, hold on, bro. This has happened multiple times. And don't get me wrong. Tyreek Hill isn't just a lone agent in feeling the way that he's felt. I'm sure that there are many people on this team that are frustrated with the lack of success that this team has seen in the playoffs. Again, this is a good team. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips. This is a good team. But just because you're a good team doesn't necessarily mean that you're a Super Bowl caliber team. I think that's what a lot of people are finding out. Which brings me to actually no, last thing I'm going to say on that is yes, I don't think Tyreek Hill is the only person that feels the way that he feels. But I am sure that he is the loudest person expressing that. And I don't think that's the smartest thing to do. Because just like I'm sure he's not the only one that thinks that, I'm sure people don't think that. I'm sure people think that they're in the greatest situation, so it could divide a locker room. Especially when you're talking about your teammate and your starting quarterback in Tua. Now, let me get to Tua. You know, I think one of the biggest issues isn't necessarily with Tua, it's expectations on who we think Tua is. Tua won a national championship or help Alabama win a national championship. Tua also had a injury riddled high school career, a injury riddled college career, and he's had an injury ridden NFL career to the point where I have talked about it, higher or bigger media pundits have talked about the fact of maybe he should think about early retirement, just off the fact of how many injuries and how frequently, especially when we talk about concussions, how many they come. I think in a 2 year span, 2 or 3 year span, he had 4 concussions. That is tough. And I know it's hard to look at that national championship and think that, oh, he won a national championship in college. That means that he's clearly one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He 1 year he led the league this team won the league by far, or led the league, by far in offensive efficiency, passing yards, passing touchdowns. Like this, there was a 2 years ago, or when they first got Tyreek Hill, where this offense was damn near unstoppable. They put up 70 points against a team, against the Broncos. So it's easy, man, to look at Tua and be like, he has all the talent. He should be a Super Bowl caliber team or Super Bowl caliber player. The expectations on Tua mount year after year, but it's like, should it? Obviously, when you pay Tua as much as you pay Tua, which also adds to some of the criticism and adds to some of the pressure. Tua's always been a okay quarterback. Tua's always been a good quarterback. Tua has never been a great quarterback. Because think about it. Even the year where broke all them offensive records as a team, what did they do in the playoffs? We talk about Tua in Alabama winning a national championship. Do you remember? He was a second-string quarterback for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was just having an awful national championship, and then he got benched. I think that not today, but we're talking about it today, so I've come to the conclusion that obviously I want Tua to be healthy, but I don't have much expectations for this team because Tua is their quarterback. And the same way I kind of discuss Justin Herbert, the same way I kind of discuss Trevor Lawrence, I can't keep talking about a player based on potential when they've been in. How long has Tua been in the league? Tua has been in the league, has to be 6 years now. I'm not saying you can't change, but at this point, you kind of are who you are. And I guess what I'm saying is, and we've kind of known this when you talk about his size, we've known this by everything outside of the national championship in college. The ceiling for Tua is, in my opinion, mighty low. And I also look at it like this. There was videos of training camp and how they do joint training camps and everything. And I don't remember the team that they were playing, but their defense, the Dolphins' defense, was getting outright torched. Was getting outright torched, like to the point where I'm looking like, yo, is this the second team? No, this is the first team getting torched like this. And then I was thinking, if Tua was in a situation like Joe Burrow, had an explosive offense, had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Could he, obviously, Joe Burrow last year didn't make it to the playoffs, but could he put up the same numbers and have the Bengals as efficient, offensively at least, as Joe Burrow's? And the answer is hell no. I don't think Tua is good enough to overcome a bad defense. And they have pieces, but if, imagine Bradley Chubb gets hurt, it's curtains. And lastly, it brings me kind of to Mike McDaniels. My question is, when does Corky become annoying? We know about the Mike McDaniel sound bites and how he's just he's an odd character, not in a bad way. It's just what makes him him. And I think his weirdness, for lack of a better term, is a draw when you talk about Mike McDaniels, and the fact of he has been touted as an offensive guru, which I understand. Again, with Mike McDaniels, the Dolphins had one of the most prolific offenses in football. But it's starting to become it's starting to become the same exact script. Mike McDaniels is great as a coach as far as offense, but he kind of misses. They say that some people are great as head coach and some people are great as coordinators. And I know that you have obviously coordinators and everything, but I look at the totality, the entire team of this Dolphins, I look at the entire Dolphins team and I think to myself, the offense is good when Tua was able to play, but the defense is still shaky. There's still some clock management issues. It's like at some point people are going to get tired, and maybe people are already at that point where they just get tired of the quirkiness. And it's like, it's not producing winning, at least in the playoffs. And as much as we talk about Lamar Jackson, which obviously we will talk about Lamar Jackson when we get to the AFC South, or AFC North, I'm sorry, and we talk about Lamar Jackson's lack of playoff success, that's the entire Dolphins organization. Except the issue is Lamar Jackson has won some playoff games of recently. The Dolphins have not. It feels like every time we talk about the Dolphins, it's the same exact thing. And at that point, it's like, when do you get tired of it? Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.